Happy Rooted in Sports Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Once again, we are back after a pretty fun, pretty eventful NFL divisional round group of
To say
playoff
the least.
games. They were all pretty solid. Things went kind of as expected. One of us, kind of experienced a bit of a heartbreaking loss, but we'll get to that later.
And we'll touch on it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good group of games, man. Definitely excited about these championship matchups next weekend, which I know we're gonna get to. So yeah, man, good stuff ahead, man. Little NFL divisional round recap, and we're gonna give a preview of the NFC Championship games, NFC and AFC Championship games, and then real quickly, we just gonna touch on we a little bit past the halfway point on the NBA season. So we're just gonna kind of touch on a few MVP candidates right now. I know there's a lot of names that you could legitimately make an argument for, but we're just gonna throw a couple names out there and just talk about the seasons that they're having in the seasons their teams are having. So I got a lot for you today. We might not go the full 2 hours today as normal, but nonetheless, man, we're gonna give y'all some really good, phenomenal content, man. So yeah, let's get into it, man. Kenny, how you feel, man? You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to go ahead and dive in and talk about a pretty fun and eventful playoff. NFL playoffs. Obviously a little bit of NBA too. So let's jump into the intro and let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. Such a beautiful intro, and just like that,
Indeed.
And just like that, we are back. As we mentioned before, man, it was a great weekend of football. We had our 4 divisional round games, and I guess we could just go in order. So we can go ahead and start with the Saturday games. The first game on Saturday was the Jaguars at the Chiefs, in which the Chiefs did come out on top, 27-20. I mean, this game pretty much went how I thought it would. The Jaguars, they're a young up and coming team. They hung tough, but ultimately, I mean, the Chiefs have the best quarterback in the league right now.
It wasn't as high scoring as I thought it would be, though.
I agree. It wasn't.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a little higher.
Obviously, looking forward, Mahomes did get a little dinged up in this game. They said he has a high ankle sprain, which normally would cause a player to miss, a little bit of time. But obviously, he's going to push through. They'll be going to I think this is their 5th consecutive AFC Championship game. So, man. I mean, obviously, in the playoffs, when you got an opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl, he's going to go ahead and push through that. And it's going to be a rematch with the opponent from last season that they lost to in this very same round. So, yeah, man, Jags and Chiefs come out on top, man. What are your thoughts
on this game?
Yes.
I mean, once again, like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't as high scoring as I thought it would be. I thought this was going to be in the 30s, but obviously both defenses came prepared to play. I think Kansas City's defense probably played one of their cleaner games in a while, especially secondary wise. They didn't let Zay Jones and Chris York really get loose. And then, honestly, I think on the other end, I'll tell you the truth, Jaguars defensively, those guys are young, but if they continue the upward trajectory that they're on, they're going to be an elite defense sooner rather than later. These are all guys that are, 27, 20, 25, 26 and down. All right, happy Tuesday, best pod on YouTube. Thanks, brother.
Oh, we know, Bo. Much appreciation.
We appreciate it, brother. Yeah, man, they're a really young team, and I think that they show that okay, it's not our time, but we're close. So we can only imagine. First of all, we see what Doug Peterson did his second year in Philly. I want to see what his second year in Jacksonville is going to look like. So really, really fun game on both ends. Just well fought.
Determination.
Now, I think for Kansas City, this one's going to be tough. Obviously, we'll talk about predictions later.
Is that you? Goals and once felt out of
Can you hear me?
Yeah, is that?
That's why Honda engineers didn't just redesign the trail sport. They built the most off-road capable Honda SUV ever.
Okay, I'm bad. It sounds like it's an advertisement or something going on.
The Honda line.
But go ahead.
I don't know. Yeah, see, I have the
with Josh Allen.
I got the tab muted, so I don't know.
Either
Either way,
now they're talking. You don't hear that? They're talking about Josh Allen now.
I had expectations.
I do not know.
You hear that?
He lived up to it in this particular
I can't hear it.
game.
It's muted.
Josh Allen.
Huh?
No one
I
expected
can't
Cincinnati
hear
to
it. It's
roll
muted.
into Buffalo.
Okay,
and
what
from
it is,
opening
we'll do.
kickoff,
We'll X this out.
eradicate any chance that the
Can you hear now?
No, I don't.
That's crazy. Tab was muted. All right. Yeah. Like I said, just a really well fought win for both teams. I think this was a game where Kansas City couldn't I don't want to say couldn't afford, but Patrick Mahomes coming out dinged up from this game into that Cincinnati matchup is going to be something big to watch out for, because that team is which we'll obviously talk about here in a few minutes. But I mean, this was a very simple game, back and forth, and honestly, just a more experienced team was able to pull out the win. But we've seen Kansas City's been winning games like this all year, so it's not like they're a stranger to a dogfight or going back and forth with another good, talented team. So not really much to say on this. Trevor Lawrence, I think, played good. May obviously do an interception, and he definitely had a few miscues on offense, but outside of that, he played a very clean game, and you can only imagine what's going to happen when these guys get more experience.
Yeah, I pretty much echo everything you said, man. Trevor Lawrence didn't play a terrible game, but he didn't necessarily just blow you away either. And like you said, man, the more experienced team won, the team with the best player in the NFL right now, they won this game. Like I mentioned earlier, Patrick Mahomes' injury is something that you may want to kind of keep an eye on as the week progresses and leading up to their game, which I think both teams play on Sunday this week, I believe.
Is that correct?
I think both teams play on Sunday. I'll double check it at some point. But yeah, I mean, Chiefs being a more experienced team, also something to look out for, man. They have found a running game, this Chiefs team. Like Isaiah Pacheco is running the hell out the ball, man. I think they found their running back, so much so, and I'm looking at it now. Edwards-Helaire didn't even get a touch,
which is crazy because starting out this year, he was a solid part of that rotation.
Exactly. And this is a guy who, if I'm not mistaken, they used like a late first rounder on or something, if I'm not mistaken.
He was the 32nd overall pick, I think, 31st, 32nd overall pick, I think, when they won the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, he was the 32nd overall pick, yeah.
And Pacheco went in about the 6th or 7th round last year, didn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it's crazy how things fall for you, but man, they seem like they found something in Pacheco. He's running the ball really aggressively, really well. Obviously, Travis Kelce was Travis Kelce. 14 receptions, 98 yards, 2 TDs, and as long as they got Mahomes and Kelce, I mean, they're going to be a problem for anyone. And then obviously the Jaguars. This was a year where you could argue, you might can argue that they kind of overachieved this year. They might have sped along the rebuild process. Right. And so going into next year, I mean, you'd have to consider them the clear favorites in the AFC South. You have to consider them the clear favorites there.
And they don't have many weaknesses.
They don't. And
that's like the scary part.
And like you said, they are young. They're young. Devin Lloyd, the number one, Trayvon Walker, like they're young defensively. And
Josh
Allen,
on both ends of the ball. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're still,
this is a literally 27 and under team.
Exactly. With a great, Super Bowl winning head coach. The sky's the limit for this team, man. So, don't be surprised if next year we see this team toward the top of the AFC. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. More experienced team won, and yeah, Kansas City, they got a tough one ahead though, and we'll get to that. But they got their hands full next week. So.
Who we got next?
All right. And we can go to the Saturday night game, which was the Giants at the Eagles. The Eagles made real quick work of them, 38-7. I expected this game to be a little bit closer.
I think everybody did.
Yeah, I expected this game to be a little bit closer, but I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Philly went out there and they did what they were supposed to do. They're really well. You know what? I'll get to what I have to say. I'm gonna let you go. What were your thoughts on this game?
Kind of. I'll echo what you said in the beginning. I expected it to be closer. You know, Brian Daboll's done a really good job of getting his team prepared to play. I think he even had them prepared to play in this game. I just think that they came out flat. And Philly is just there was never a doubt that Philly was the more talented team. And I said this last week, you know, Rooted Sports. I said that if they came in and they played with the Giants, if they played with their food, that they you know, the game would be competitive, but they didn't. They came in, imposed their will. They used the talent that Howie Roseman put together. I want to say it's pretty much all hands on deck because everybody's back. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's back. Lane Johnson's back. Josh Sweat is back. So they've gotten a lot of those hurt pieces back. Jalen Hurts, obviously. And
they had the bye week as well. That helped.
And they had the bye week. So honestly, you just saw a more talented team fire on all cylinders. And I actually like the Giants. And I think that it's just not their time. It's just not their moment. Mm-hmm. And Philly, you know, I I hate to sound, you know, like, you know, a little jealous, but I feel like they got a really good divisional round matchup based off of where they were health wise and stuff like that. It wasn't really a dogfight. They kind of really went in there and walked on them. Now, as for the Giants, right now, I think they have a solid foundation as to where they go from here. We know Saquon Barkley is a building piece. I even think Daniel Jones did a few good things. I think he fought hard despite really what's around him. You know, when you're throwing a guy's name Richie James and I mean Hodgkins, we didn't even know who the hell Hodgkins was before this year. Exactly. You know, he's your de facto number one guy. When you're throwing it to those guys like that, I mean, there's very little that a team or offense or a coach can ask from you. So the biggest thing going to be for them is just to add talent moving forward, and I think that they could be a good team. Defensively, they have some youth too. They're going to have to add some talent in the secondary. But as far as the front seven, I think everything is slowly but surely starting to come together. But this was just a bad matchup against a better team. And they just can't. They started out flat. They had a few minutes where they were trying to make it competitive, I want to say in the second half, but it's too little to. So, I mean, this game is kind of really simple to define. It's not really much intricacy to it. It's not a complicated game. The more talented team handled their business and won.
Yeah, I think Philly kind of came out with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think that being that they're divisional opponents and this is their third time meeting each other, I think they heard the rumblings. They heard various analysts saying, you know, especially off of the performance that the Giants had last week against the Minnesota Vikings. I think a lot of analysts were saying, almost kind of picking this as maybe like they're upset. You know, you've seen a few analysts here and there, you know, kind of picking the Giants to be able to go in there and run the ball and control the clock or whatnot. So I think Philly kind of came out with a little bit of a chip on their shoulders. Like you said, I think that the bye week helped them because they were able to kind of get everybody back and healthy, and everybody was on a concerted effort with one goal for this game. This team is physical, and
they are,
and that's why I'm probably more excited for this NFC Championship match than I am for the AFC Championship match. Crazy enough, because this matchup next week might be the most physical game we've seen all season. Like the guys at both lines of scrimmages, like it's get your sleep, eat your Wheaties, because it's going to be a tough physical matchup. The Eagles, man, I mean, you look up and they run the hell out the ball. Like, you look up, where did Kenneth Gainwell come from? Now, mind you, Miles Sanders has been their leading rusher this year. We know
Kenneth Gainwell, they got a 3-headed. They basically have a 3-headed monster now. So Kenneth Gainwell's
Sanders,
been there.
Gainwell, and then you got Boston Scott as well, and then Jalen Hurts. They come with the design runs for Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, Gainwell was 12 carries for 112 yards. He's at 9 yards a clip. You know what I'm saying, and a touchdown.
He was
Miles Sanders added another 90 yards. They on 44 attempts, they ran for 268 yards as a team, which is over 6 yards, over 6 yards a carry.
That is demoralizing.
It is, and that's just a small example of how physical they are. I know they loved having Lane Johnson back this week. You got Jason Kelce on the line.
Kelce.
I mean, and then they're talented at receiver. We know they got Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. And the tight end Dallas Goedert. I mean, this is a really talented, really physical team. Nick Sirianni has them playing really well. They seem to be getting back healthy at the right time, and they got a heck of a matchup coming up next week. And then as far as the Giants, Brian Daboll should absolutely be our coach of the year this year in the NFL.
He should.
They're another team who I think kind of expedited their rebuild process. However, for New York Giant fans, there are some things to be excited about. However, I do think that you all have some questions going into this offseason. It's about time to rework Saquon Barkley's contract. You got to make a decision on Daniel Jones, I've never been a huge Daniel Jones guy, but I can't lie. I think under Brian Daboll, he had a pretty damn successful season.
He did.
And I think if nothing else, me personally, I think he's earned, maybe at least another deal, maybe a 2-year deal with an option after the first year or something. But he's earned at least another crack to come back and be under center for these guys. And then as you always mention, their defense is pretty darn nice. For me, outside of those two guys, though, I think they have to figure some things out as far as getting some weapons in there. And I mean, from the receiver standpoint, maybe a tight end or something. But I think they either via the draft or via free agency, they're going to have to address the wide receiver situation because, like you said, man, I mean, Richie James was their leading receiver in this game. Last week, it was Isaiah Hodgins, so I never even heard of the cat. I mean, I
didn't hear about him till about 5-6 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Darius Slayton, but I mean, is he a 1? Is he a 2?
I think he's a good 3 or 4 guy.
Exactly.
I think that's who he is.
I agree. So yeah, I think they want to maybe go out and address the wide receiver situation in the offseason, whether it be draft or free agency. But long story short, they definitely expedited the rebuild process.
Oh, yeah.
And as a Giants fan, there's some things to be excited about. But in the Giants front office, there's also some decisions to be made in this offseason. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And you hit on something, and one thing I want to tell Giants fans, especially when looking at Daniel Jones, we don't know what he can be. I always tell people, I said, if Alex Smith, after 7 years, who I think people forget, Alex Smith was struggling for 7 years with 7 different offensive coordinators. He was every bit as bad, if not worse, than Daniel Jones. And then the right coach came along and was able to, kind of get them together, put the pieces together. And Alex Smith, he became at a minimum became a Pro Bowl quarterback in the league for the next few years. So I think Daniel Jones has the same type of potential. A bigger kid, athlete.
Tools. Yeah, he definitely has the tools. He's not a bad thrower of the football. And
no, he's not.
Contrary to Alex Smith, you know what I'm saying? He's a pretty athletic guy. Like, he can get out and run.
Well, let me go ahead and throw some respect. Alex Smith can run now. He's not a Daniel Jones. He's not a Daniel Jones athlete. I give you that. I'm just saying, but he'll take one if he see an opening. He'll rip it for about 10, 15 yards on you if you sleep on him. But
we've seen Daniel, and granted, he had a grave tumble at the end, but we've seen him scamper off for 80. before he tripped over his own feet heading into the end zone.
Yeah, that was like what, the 2019 season, I think? 2019, 2020
Was
season?
it? I thought I thought it was last year. That wasn't last year.
I don't know. He's been I forgot it. I know his rookie year was 2019.
I just remember, and it's crazy, you know. This was his. Was this his 4th or 5th year? I had forgotten until I was reading some earlier. He was in the same draft for Kyler Murray.
He was. He absolutely was. As a matter of fact, I think this was technically his 4th year, but I think they declined his 5th year option. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to double check on that. But I know he's been in the league. His rookie year was 2019, so that should make sense of everything. But yeah, like I said, great. You know, I'm not gonna say a great game because it was a very one-sided game. But I think both teams, you know, understand where they go from here. I'll say this, and then we'll move on. As much as I, you know, grew up disliking this individual, man, this man I don't think anybody builds a team better than this man. Howie Roseman can fucking build a team.
Yeah.
You can hate him all you want. There is nobody that can build a team like Howie Roseman, and he can do it he could give him 1-2 off seasons. He's gonna give you a Super Bowl caliber roster, and that's what he's done. People get mad about it, but the truth is what he did was he made the necessary moves to make his team this good. You know, people were, you know, a lot of
guys he brought in, and I'm just speaking. We talk about him bringing in AJ Brown. They draft Devontae Smith. Defensively, they go out and get Hassan Reddick. Last year, they got a big play Slay, Gardner Johnson.
And Gardner Johnson was the sneaky one because that was towards the end of the offseason. Remember, we didn't think he was supposed to be playing in New Orleans this year. Yep. And then towards the end of the offseason, you know, they didn't really want to pay him. So they, you know, Howie Roseman went ahead and made that trade. So he has done everything possible to make this team better. And I have to say this because people, you know, I think there's a big argument going on with this. A lot of people look at Jalen Hurts. While I think Jalen Hurts has improved significantly, I think you still have to look at what Howie Roseman has done for his. That's what every team should do for their quarterback, whether he's a Patrick Mahomes level talent or he's a Dak Prescott level talent. It doesn't matter. Whatever level talent your quarterback is, you should surround him with as many pieces as possible and put him in position to succeed. And Howie Roseman has done that.
He has, man. Shout out to him, man. And once again, they're another team at home. They are the number 1 seed, but they're another team that's gonna have their hands full next week.
They sure are.
Right,
so what we got next? We're gonna
move on to Cincinnati Buffalo Bengals defeating the Buffalo Bills 2017 in Buffalo in the snow. Bro, this Cincinnati team, man. You know what? You've been saying this, and then I'm gonna toss it to you. You've been saying this for quite some time now, and we mentioned, you know, maybe outside of San Francisco, they were probably the hottest team in the NFL heading into the playoffs. You've been saying this for a few weeks now, and it just really reigns true. This Cincinnati team can really beat you in every way possible. It doesn't matter what type of the game. It doesn't matter the style of game, the style of play. They can beat you in every style possible, and that's scary for an NFL team, man. But what you think?
I mean, they went in there. Tell you the truth, they went to Buffalo on a business trip.
They did, man.
It was a business trip, and you know, I would say, you know, I guess I can revel. You know, I had my predictions this weekend. I can revel in this one because I'm all about teams that have completely changed and challenged the narrative that the NFL has tried to put out. And the truth is, the NFL has been Google Gaga over Buffalo the last 2 years, despite them. Honestly, even though they had the heartbreaking loss last year, the truth is they haven't done anything. and they've fallen short when it's time for them to make these plays and become the team that the NFL wants them to be, a top 2 or 3 team. Coming into the season, they were the number 1 rated team in the league. Power rankings, they were number 1.
And
they were the Super
opening night, and they smacked the
Rams
all around.
Yeah,
you couldn't have told anybody in this world that they weren't headed straight for the Super Bowl.
Is this the best team in the NFL? And that's what you heard. But I'll say this on the Buffalo side, while they're talented, they had a few things happen to them throughout the season. One, I think the losing Von Miller was so substantial for them on defense. Not only from a leadership standpoint, but they have a lot of young pass rushers, guys that I think are talented, that I really believe will get her. Ed Oliver is taking them forever. Gregory Rousseau continues to climb the ladder. AJ Epinesa is getting better.
They lost Hyde.
Yeah, they lost Micah. They lost Micah Hyde. Hey, watch this, and not to make a spectacle of this, but people forget, before his injury, Damar Hamlin was a starter for them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he was a starter.
He had stepped in because I think Hyde got hurt maybe week 2, week 3.
Yeah, early in the season.
And Hamlin stepped in, and he had been starting the rest of the game and playing well.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he was top 5 in snaps taken on defense. So he wasn't just playing; he was one of their more important players on defense. So they lost a lot there. And then offensively, I think they continue to be exposed for not being able to run the football when they need to, and people have kind of realized that if you stay aggressive with them, Josh Allen will turn the ball over.
Oh yeah, if you get after him,
it's a foregone conclusion. The crazy part is either it's going to be an interception or it's going to be a fumble. So I think that Josh Allen, especially being where he's at, where you consider him, and I still consider him a top 3 quarterback, top 3, top 4 quarterback, whatever you want to do, whoever you want to entrench in there, he has to be held to a higher standard. And the truth is if you're up there and you're turning the ball over, somebody made a Brett Favre comparison and I couldn't ignore it. A guy that's great, but I mean, Jesus Christ, some of these turnovers are just ridiculous.
So before I go, my bad. Before I go, you kind of alluded to it, and it kind of led me into the question that I wanted to ask you. I think for most NFL fans, aficionados, analysts, reporters, or whatnot, obviously Patrick Mahomes is, he's one, and then there's everyone else. As far as quarterbacks go, I think a lot of people would have said Mahomes, Josh Allen. Do you think with this game and with the season Cincinnati is having, with the season Joe Burrow having, with him going into Buffalo and basically outplaying Josh Allen and getting this win, do you think that Joe Burrow has surpassed Josh Allen and is possibly that number 2 quarterback now?
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, I know Bo's not gonna like this. You have to. Joe is closing on ground on Pat too, and I'm not saying he's Pat. It's not, and that's not saying anything less of Pat, because Pat is Pat and he's where he's at. But Joe continues to embarrass the new narrative of what the NFL wants a quarterback to be. Yeah. He doesn't have a big, crazy arm. He's not a plus athlete. It's not like he's a 6'5", 230 pound guy. He's not that. He's a regular 6'3", 220 pound guy from Ohio, above average arm, but he got nerves of steel. He is such a throwback player at the quarterback position. So he's fully entrenched as the number 2 guy, in my opinion. I think his performance has shown that this year. Losing injuries, losing Joe Mixon for extended amount of time, losing Jamar Chase. Look, first of all, in this game, let's think about this. Cincinnati has lost. I think in this game, they were missing 3 of their starting offensive linemen. Right? Leo Collins done for the season. Kappa done for the season. And then you lose the left tackle. I always forget the guy's name. Out of Alabama.
I think he got hurt. The one that got hurt last week.
Yes, yeah. Jonah Williams. You're missing him too. And it was kind of like they were like, it is what it is. Shoulder shrug. We're gonna figure it out anyways. And they imposed their will on the ground. They still were able to run the ball efficiently, missing 3 of their starting offensive linemen. So outside of what we've seen Joe do, this team as a whole, I don't think I have seen an identity shift like this in a football team ever. Not like this. I've never seen the team go from being terrible to you're looking up and you like, damn, these boys are one of the. And it wasn't like Jamar Chase went crazy in this game or anything. Like he made some key plays, but this wasn't a 180 yard.
He got him started. He had the first, touchdown catch, but it wasn't like he just.
This was a pure team win. Mm-hmm. Defensively, they made the stops. Offensively, they ran the football. Joe Burrow made the throws he needed to make. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase made the catches they need to make. Like, this is just a very, very tough team. And I'll say this and I'll pass to you. For anybody getting on my boy, look, I'm going to tell you this. I wrote him off too.
Eli.
Look, I wrote him off. But there are times where people come back from the dead. We write them off. And we leave them for dead in the desert with a gunshot wound, bleeding, and they make it back. And the truth is as much as y'all hate Eli Apple talking his shit, he is the starting cornerback. Now they're number one guy because Woozier is hurt. He's out for the season. He's the number one cornerback for what could possibly be a championship defense. So I'll tell for anyone that hates him, just sit down and shut the fuck up and enjoy it.
Yeah. I think obviously Eli Apple, I'm still not a big Eli Apple guy, but
I know I get it.
He's turned himself into a serviceable cornerback. He has improved, and like you said, Uzi's out, and he's really the number one guy now. And
he's taking us.
He's holding the fort. I agree with you. I think you have to say that Joe Burrow is at least number 2 now, and I think. If he goes into Kansas City again this weekend, this will be his fourth time in a row beating that team, and 2 consecutive years beating them in the AFC Championship game in Kansas City. So that argument would have to be made.
This will be the 4th time in a calendar year that he's beaten that I won't say him, that Cincinnati has beaten Kansas City.
Crazy. That's crazy. That is if he wins this game on Saturday, he has just as good as argument as Patrick Mahomes to be the number 1 quarterback to be considered the best quarterback in the league. But just get into this game really quickly. I mean, like you said, it was a total team effort. They went in there, conditions weren't great. It was snowy, wind blowing. Cincinnati just flat out dominated this team. Cincinnati was on Sunday. Cincinnati was flat out the better team, and the better team won this game. Point blank simple. You talked about Buffalo. You talked about Josh Allen, and I think you're absolutely right. When you get a little pressure on them, it's almost like and Brett Favre is a great comparison because 2-3 times a game he's going to make a throw, and you're going to be like. Yeah, outside of maybe Mahomes, it's not a person on this planet that can do that. But he's gonna throw the ball to you. It's just up to the defense to convert on the turnover, to come down with it.
It's a foregone.
At some point in the game, he's gonna give you the ball.
It's a foregone conclusion.
It is, man. And then we look at last year. We remember how they lost last year in the divisional round. They go up with 13 seconds left, and defense allows Kansas City to go down and tie the game, and then ultimately Kansas City gets the ball first in overtime and wins. So Josh Allen never gets his hands back on the ball. Looking at that team, they never really truly addressed what their issue was, even last year, which was them being able to effectively run the football. I know they went out. I know they drafted James Cook in the draft this past season, but I mean, I don't know. Let's just say he's not ready yet. I remember from week 1 when he fumbled that ball on week 1, he was just kind of in the doghouse, and toward the end of the season, you started to kind of see him get a few more looks and a few more carries, but it thus far that pick just hasn't quite panned out for him. Devin Singletary, I mean, he's almost
63 yards.
63 yards. He's out 63 yards total for the Buffalo
total
Bills
rushing.
as a team.
That's asinine, and you're at home.
Yeah, Devin Singletary is almost turned into more of a receiving back.
Right.
Josh Allen is their rushing attack, point blank. Period. So here it is for the second year in a row. You got the same problem, and it hasn't been addressed yet. So hopefully, the Buffalo Bills going into this offseason, they can do something to kind of address that. I think Josh Allen needs to kind of tone it down a little bit, get back to the drawing board, because we seen we really started to see him turn the ball over a lot more than we were used to this season. It's almost like he kind of reverted back to those first couple years that we seen in him in the NFL, just making those kind of younger quarterback mistakes that we thought he was past, i.e. a lot of those turnovers that he had in the red zone that we thought he was past. So I think this offseason he kind of may need to get back to the drawing board. But yeah, man, I mean, Buffalo, they just got themselves to look at for this, man. Obviously, and I know you're saying this too. You seen how upset Stephon Diggs was during the game and then after the game. And you hate to see him kind of show up as quarterback like that publicly. But with that being said, I mean, I understand his frustrations, because this was a team that, had a lot of high hopes, a lot of high aspirations, a lot of high expectations, and they didn't live up to it, point blank, period. I think that he would have been able to deal with them losing this game if they would have came out and played, a slightly better effort. But yeah, it just didn't happen, man. Cincinnati came out, they punched them in the mouth. They were flat out the better team, and they came out and proved it.
And I think what makes it worse is that Buffalo has no excuses.
They don't.
Buffalo has no excuses. They don't have a talent deficit. They have talented receivers. They have a talented tight end, Dawson Knox.
Even defensively, even with the injury to Von Miller,
they were still a good.
We're talking about the same. They were. They were the number one ranked defensive team last season without him.
Exactly.
Granted, you lost Micah Hyde as well, but I mean,
this wasn't. I'll put it like this. I'll put it like this. Especially when you're looking at, they had a good amount of possessions, so it wasn't like they didn't have the ball at all. Or how many more hits until he turns into big stiff?
Are you talking about Josh Allen? Yeah.
Hey,
and that's something Buffalo has to think about. That's something Buffalo has to think about.
But this is what I'll say in regards to Josh Allen. I think this playoffs is going to be big for him. We're going to see how he takes another mental leap, because I think in the past, he had Brian Daboll. Even first of all, Josh Allen, since he's entered the league, even his best years, he's always turned the ball over. He's always been a turnover guy. It may not have been as high, but he's always had Brian Daboll to reel him back in. Right. But we've seen some games, i.e. 21, the Jacksonville game, where he played terrible. Right. He's going to have moments like that. But once again, now, and I knew at some point it would show its head post Brian Daboll, what would Josh Allen look like? And you like you said, you've seen him kind of revert back into some of those old bad habits. So for him, he's going to have to really put on his big boy pants now and realize, like, hey, my team's going to require more of me. He's more than talented enough to do it, but now you can't depend on scheme. And that team, they're going to have to be like, okay, well, how can we know Josh is great, but how do we take just a little bit more off of his plate? That's why I think they're going to have to really look at drafting a running back. And I'm not just talking about a regular running back. They're going to I'm talking about like B. John Robinson. They need a guy at running back that can really take pressure off of him. And if that happens, I think that will take such an amount off of this team. But it is what it is. They lost to a team that was more prepared, more battle tested. For them, they got to lick their wounds. They got to get better. And they'll be a Super Bowl contender. Their window's nowhere near close, so they'll be Super Bowl contender again next year.
Right back,
they got to learn.
NFL analysts, they'll be right back at the top of that list of toward the top of that list at least of Super Bowl favorites next year. So
yeah. So that was a good game, but I mean, guess what? Now we're at the nitty gritty. the grand finale
All right.
of fucking games.
And the last game of this weekend.
Yeah.
We seen the Dallas Cowboys fall to the San Francisco 49ers 19-12. You know what? First of all, I know that you and I are gonna have a difference of opinion on these games. On this game specifically. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I know this might take us a little while, but we're gonna go ahead and we gonna get it all out. Hey, that's what we here for. You know what I'm saying? Rooted in sports. We're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty about it. You've had a couple days to take this in, calm down, really think about what you saw and what happened. And so I'm gonna throw it to you first. I'm gonna let you have the floor. Why did Dallas lose this game? Why did the Niners ultimately win this game? What are your thoughts?
I would say opportunities. I think the thing about Dallas they had to realize coming into this game is that even though I don't feel like from how the season played out and the challenges that were overcome, I don't feel like San Fran was better than them in that sense. But the truth is, you just can't deny the talent. So Dallas had to understand that.
Wait. I'm sorry. You say that again. As far as you're saying,
as far as like being more prepared for this moment and for the playoffs, and as far as like the adversity going throughout the season, I think that Dallas was more prepared for that. But it based off of everything that they went through. But the truth is with San Fran, you just couldn't deny the talent. They are a talented team. I think that GM John Lynch has done every bit of Howie Roseman has done in Philly as really putting a championship caliber team together. That being said, it was a competitive football game. But what Dallas had to understand is that the margin for error goes down on both ends of the ball. Offensively, you can't turn the ball over as much. Especially the truth is, I'll dial into that in a little bit. You can't turn the ball over as much. I know, obviously Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions. And then defensively, you have to take advantage of turnovers. So I would say Dallas lost this game because the truth is they didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were given to them. San Fran didn't go in there and handle them. They weren't a dominant team. It was a very even matchup. I mean, total yards, 282, 312. Passing yards, Dallas has 206, San Fran 199. I mean, very, very. You're looking at them putting up the stats in this game. This was a very evenly matched game, But I think for Dallas, I'll say this offensively, the loss of Tony Pollard was huge. I
said that when he went down.
That was substantial. It was substantial because Dallas only had 2 explosive options in this game coming into this game. 2 guys that they could throw out there and say, okay, hey, y'all got to worry about them. And that was Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb did his job. Can't complain with. I want to say he had 10 receptions, 117 yards. So he did his job.
I think if there's anyone that people like myself who had questions about him coming into the season, I think down the stretch of the season he proved
me wrong.
Not only is he a number 1, but I think you'd have to, at a bare minimum, he's a top 10 wide receiver in this league.
Oh, he's a top 10 guy.
I think he proved that.
Yeah, he proved that. But them losing Tony Pollard was so substantial because now defense, I think they pretty much knew it. They're like, all we really have to worry about is CeeDee Lamb. And you saw Dak Prescott after a while kind of start trying to force him the ball because no one else. I mean, what do you expect from T.Y. Hilton at this age?
I think on that last pick, the one that Ward tipped that Warner ended up coming down with, I think that was a little bit of tunnel vision as well, with him just trying to force you.
Well, and it's funny. I think that was a play or two after Tony Pollard got hurt. It was in that same drive, So I think it changed the entire trajectory of things. But I'll say this: Dallas, this is my biggest knock on Dallas. The front office is phenomenal at drafting. but they do certain shit, and it comes back to bite them. And what they did this offseason was they let Amari Cooper go for nothing.
I was just about to ask you, do you feel like they felt the loss of Amari Cooper? Because that was going to be one of my points. I think, especially with Gallup being out early and then having to try to work his way back, I think they really kind of felt the loss of Amari Cooper.
They did, but I think the worst than moving Amari Cooper was never finding a suitable replacement. In the short term, you knew Michael Gallup was coming off of injury. So what you did was you put Dak Prescott for as much as people you want to be critical of him, he has limitations. You put him out there with just CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup right now, he's going to need another offseason. I think this game showed that. He is not the same. That's not pre-injury Michael Gallup. Like, he looks slow. He can't get open. He gave up. As a matter of fact,
he can't separate it.
No, he can't. And Dez Bryant actually talked about that first pick that Dak Prescott had, even though it was a bad read by Dak Prescott. Dez Bryant tweeted, he said, "You can't, as a receiver, you can't give up on a timing route." And he said, "You saw Michael Gallup. If you watch the replay, he gave up at the top of that route." And Lenore just ran right in front of him, and you saw Michael Gallup come to like a full stop. So he's
but it might be like you said. It might be one of those. He might need that other offseason because it might be at the point where it's tougher for him to get out of his break and then attack the ball. You know what I'm saying?
It's not fine. It's not firing. That knee's not firing right now. So I mean, I'll keep it simple. I don't want to ramble on and on. I'll pick out. Obviously, the Tony Pollard injury was very substantial, and I think that put it put Dak in a very tough spot. And I think offensive line wise, I knew they were going to struggle, but obviously you saw that front seven that front four put pressure on Dak Prescott, and he was kind of under duress most of the night. Even though they didn't sack him a ton, they definitely kind of kept him flustered and flushed him out of the pocket a couple times. That was offensively, and I think that based off of what I don't really know. I guess maybe if Dak Prescott was more talented, I would expect more of him. But with his limitations and where he's at and where I've always considered him, I don't think I never thought he was going to overcome that. I didn't think he was going to drop 300 yards on this team. I didn't see that, especially with just CeeDee Lamb. On the defensive side, I'll end it with this. There's a reason why Dan Quinn won't be back. He's done a phenomenal job with his defense. He came in with a great game plan. When I tell you they were not following for those motions and the screens, they wasn't going for none of that shit. They came in with a really, really well put together game plan, and they played hard. They kept them in check. I think for the most part on the ground. But the backbreaker, I said this in the chat before I left out of anger. And Trayvon knows it. Trayvon Diggs, that pick he dropped was big. That was backbreaking. It was and that same drive. And it's funny because I guess I was so all over the place. I didn't, that same drive. Remember, I don't know if you remember that George Kittle juggling catch. Trayvon Diggs pulled up on him. If Trayvon Diggs hits him, that's an incomplete pass, but he pulled up on it and he didn't hit him. Maybe just didn't want to get a penalty, but that obviously wound up being one of the more pivotal catches of the game. But Trayvon dropped a pick. Deron Bland had actually dropped a pick at the beginning of the game. I want to say it was on a deep crosser to Brandon Ayuk. And Donovan Wilson dropped a pick early in the game. So defensively, while they did their job, uncharacteristically, they didn't get those turnovers because Dallas led the league in turnovers. They didn't get over that they usually get. And offensively, I'll be honest, I think after the Pollard injury, I just don't think they had enough. And for them to get put into the limelight where they had to make a play, I think that's where it became unfortunate. So I'll kind of leave it at that. I think San Fran just took advantage of their opportunities. It wasn't a dominant effort by them, but they had a little bit more talent, and they caught a few lucky breaks as far as like Dallas not capitalizing on some of those turnovers. But outside of that, that's really my verdict of the game.
All right, so I think here is where we differ at. I think that Dallas is, and you alluded to this. I think that Dallas's defense played phenomenal.
They did.
They played phenomenal. Okay, I'll speak first to the interception that Diggs didn't get. I think that he wasn't expecting that ball. You know, the ball got tipped at the line, and he just happened to look up, and it hit him right in the chest. And it was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it was a ball that he was necessarily. I think it's a little different between a ball that he's making a play on and a ball that just happened to just hit him. Granted, you want him to come down with that. He's as far as hands on a cornerback, he probably has some of the best set of hands on any cornerback in the league.
Yes.
And it's a ball that you do want him to come down with, but I don't blame him for that one. As far as the missed opportunities, as far for Dallas to get turnovers, I think you mentioned one from Bland earlier in the game. I think that Dallas's defense played extremely well, and I think that those missed opportunities are only a thought because of the turnovers that Dak Prescott had. I think I don't want to kill Dak because I still think that you know he's a damn good quarterback. He's better than more than half of these quarterbacks in this league. With that being said, I think that this just wasn't his best year. This wasn't his best year. We've alluded before to, and obviously, okay, he led the league in interceptions this year. I think he had 7 consecutive games with the turnover at some point this year. We alluded to the fact that, you know, some of those interceptions weren't on him, and they weren't. But you know, if you count the 2 yesterday, I think that put him at 17 interceptions for the 2 Sunday. I think that put him at 17 interceptions for the year.
Right.
Even if we were to take away 3 or 4 of those, you're still looking at a guy who would have had, you know, 13, 14 interceptions on a season in which he only played 10, 11 regular season games and then the 2 playoff games. So you're still looking at a guy who's and we talked about Josh Allen with this. At the end of the day, as far as this season, we were looking at a guy who at some point in the game, he was going to give you the ball. You know, because if we're averaging it out, that's about a turnover. Turnover a game, and that's not the Dak that we've seen in years past. Now,
but I'll say this before you continue. To make the comparison to Josh Allen isn't fair. One, Josh Allen's the better quarterback, and he has more talent around him, so he has less excuses.
No.
That comparison is ridiculous.
I agree. I agree. I'm just using the analogy. I agree. Right. It's more disappointing in Josh. It's in actuality is more disappointing in Josh Allen's case. I just think that because it's Dak Prescott, and once again, as you alluded to, because he plays for the Cowboys, and this is, you know, they're America's team, and we had all of that going on before last season about him getting paid, and then they finally paid him all that money for situations like this, for games like this. You know, I remember, I think that was last or week before last, and during the wild card round, and me and Obo going back and forth in the chat, and I remember saying to him, he was kind of talking about Joe Burrow and, you know, defense building about this, that, and the third. And I was kind of saying to him that, and this is one of the things that I think makes Joe Burrow great, is the fact that he knows and he understands that not every game is going to be him lighting it up and putting up 275, 300 and some yards. But he knows there are some games where he just simply has to manage. That is what has made Tom Brady so great for so long, is that he understands that there are some games that he's not just going to go out there and throw them to a victory, but there are some games that he's just going to have to manage.
Right.
And I think with the way that Dallas's defense was playing on Sunday, I think that this was just one of those games and one of those scenarios where Dak didn't necessarily have to win the game, but he just needed to kind of go out and just manage it. If he just simply doesn't turn the ball over, I think that they're right there in this game. Like you said, the loss of Tony Pollard really, truly did hurt them because it only truly left them with one playmaker.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, okay? Can we finally admit that Zeke is not that guy anymore?
That
he's not.
No.
He's not that guy that you can just give him the ball 25, give him 25, 30 touches.
No. Wait. Okay, so this is what I always say. This was never going to be a big running game, not for Pollard either. So, we can go ahead and say what it says. So Tony Pollard only about 40, 50 yards in this game.
But I think it says something. I think it says something that even now, even this season, Tony Pollard got more touches and outdid him even receiving out of the backfield.
Well, that's because they've minimized Zeke. First of all, Zeke's always been a great receiver out the backfield. His numbers show. Yeah, his numbers show that. I think his role. I think his role
this season, his role
got reduced because they gave that to Tony Pollard, and that's fine. For me, I know for a fact that Zeke can go to another team. If they say we want to give you the ball 25 times a game, he'll have it. Like Zeke had 872 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he missed 2 games. He's in his sleep. So you could say he's not the creme de la creme. But the truth is Zeke in his sleep is a 1,000-yard double-digit touchdown back in his sleep.
Okay, so here's my rebuttal to that. Because you've often argued that the reason Tony Pollard has some of his success is kind of in part because of Zeke. Because Zeke, if both guys are healthy, Zeke is going to get more touches. You know what I'm saying? He is that battering ram back. He's going to kind of throughout
the season. Yes, yeah, throughout the season. Yes.
Okay. So my pushback to that is, I think you can also argue the other way as well. I think you can also argue that Tony Pollard kind of opens up some lanes for Zeke as well.
He doesn't because he's not going to wear he's defense down. If anything,
I think that he'll kind of spread them out.
Only way I could see you saying that is if they're in the game together and maybe you put Tony Pollard some on emotion. But the thing about Tony Pollard that makes him so unique is his explosion and his ability. And this is why I think he was so crucial to this game. Against San Fran, you're not going to get it's going to be a very tight game. So Tony Pollard, you're going to depend on him maybe breaking one of those. He's maybe catching one of those creases and getting the 8 to 10 yard gain. That's what made him so special, I think, against this defense. But if we're talking about for a full year, the truth is I mean, and I think we see that you're not going to. And this is just another example of it. I hate to say it. It's like a freak accident, but he's not a volume type of guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, if Dallas, which there's a very high chance that they move this offseason.
You said move on from Zeke?
There's a very high chance. I know he said he wants to
be my question to you when you finished. Okay.
Yeah. No, I know there's a chance. I know he said he's considering he'll take a pay cut to stay because he wants to stay. But they have to draft like a B. John Robinson type of back to pair with Tony Pollard, because you're not going to take Tony Pollard and tell a defense you're getting him 25 times a game. They're going to be like, we'll take him. He probably won't make it through the game. And that's not insulting Tony Pollard. He's just not a volume guy like that. That's not what his game is. Now, Zeke,
I think he would get his touches
in different ways.
Differently. Yeah.
In different ways.
Maybe, he'd get maybe 12 to 15 runs, and then maybe they try to have him catch, another 4 to 6 balls to get him to his 20 touches, and then you see that he would get the bulk of the touches at running back, and then whoever they bring in, you see that person maybe get 8 to 10 carries between the tackles, be that short yardage back.
Well, I think it could even be different. I think you would want another guy to get a bulk of the carries, and you would want to sprinkle Tony Pollard in. Like I said, same way New Orleans uses Alvin Kamara. When they use them with Mark Ingram.
Exactly.
Yeah, it has to be that way. And one thing I can say about Zeke is even in his state right now, because remember he had sprained his MCL, he had missed 2 games. He in his sleep, like I can pull up plenty of games early this year where if you give him 20 carries, it's 100 yards. So it's not that Zeke's not capable. It's just that he's in an offense that's not built for him. If he goes to a lesser team and they say, hey, we want a stopgap solution at running back. Let's say Houston has Damian Pierce now. Let's say a team says we want a stopgap solution at running back. Hey, Zeke, we're going to need you to carry the load. We're going to need you to take 20 to 25 a game. Let's say
he goes to and this is just random. I don't know why this
throw a team out.
In my head. This is a random team. Let's say you know what? Screw it. I don't know why this team came up first. Let's say he goes to like Arizona, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And he is their feature back. I think, now don't get me wrong, I think he can get 1,000 yards, but I think it's more because you got that extra game. You got that 17 game now.
No. Wait. Hold up. He can get 1,000 yards in 16 games if you give him 20 carries.
And my second point is, I mean, and I'm not trying to play 1,000 yards, but at the end of the day,
Pollard barely had 1,000 yards.
67 yards a game.
Tony Pollard, to factor this in, Zeke missed 2 games, had 872. Tony Pollard barely had 1,000 yards, like a shade over.
I mean, but Zeke still gets more runs, and then Pollard, as we explained, Pollard has become more of a piece as the running back, has become more of a piece of that passing game as well.
But what I'm saying is you can't give one guy credit for barely, like last year Zeke barely had over 1,000 yards. And he had got less carries than a lot of backs in the league, and he got 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns.
So here's my question. Here's the question I was getting to. Do you think, given in the right situation, he can get? You think if Zeke gets a consistent 20 to 25 rushes over a 17-game period, do you think he's still a 13, 14, 1,500 yard back?
He doesn't have. He doesn't
still be that impactful.
I
think that's my thing. I don't think he can. He can still. I'm not going to deny that he could still probably rush for 1,000 yards, but I don't think he can be as impactful of a back as he was, in those first 4 seasons or so.
I think if he went to a team that asked more of him, I think he's a. This is where I said this. I said this earlier in the season. We don't have to harp on this too long. He is where Frank Gore was 2013, 2014 and on, where he's consecutively, he can get you anywhere between, as a matter of fact, not even 2014. I could argue 2012, where he's anywhere between 8 to 1,200 yard back. And he sustained that for 6 years. That's where Zeke is. And that's fine. That there's nothing wrong with him. I always said for Zeke, even if his prime didn't last long, his game lasts longer because he's so more well-rounded than 98% of the backs in the league. They can't do everything that he does. They may be more explosive, but they can't do the little things that he does. So there's still a place for him in this league. He's still a starting running back. Like I said, once again, if you'd have told I missed 2 games and he had almost 900 yards, double-digit touchdowns in his sleep, I'd have said that's a win. And I will continue to prove this. Granted, Christian McCaffrey is having his renaissance now, but we continue to see that out of all these running backs that got that contract, Zeke has an argument that he earned it more than everybody else. we're seeing Chris. What? No, watch her. No, look, hey.
That seems to downplay what Christian McCaffrey is doing.
No.
Do you
but
know
guess what?
San Francisco hasn't lost a game.
So guess what? So guess what? You're talking about Christian McCaffrey now. The Panthers paid him, and they didn't get any return on that.
I mean, yeah, that's on them. But I think you were kind of. To me, that doesn't mean that he wasn't worth. He's every bit worth every penny.
So, no, it's not. No, it's. I understand the worth, but at the end of the day, he's been hurt most of the last 3 years. So this is his renaissance, and good for him. But if you're talking about running backs that have gotten the big contract that have stayed healthy, Zeke missed his second and third career game to injury this year, right? I mean, we're looking at all these running backs that are gotten paid. First of all, Alvin Kamara. I mean, he had a terrible year. Alvin Kamara had a terrible year. And was injury riddled last year. But I mean, you're just seeing all these cases of these guys that, i.e., can't stay healthy or can't perform in big moments. So my thing is we can get on Zeke, but the truth is Zeke has had, even in a minimized role, has had a substantial impact on this football team. Right, even in a minimized role. So, I mean, I don't want to harp too much on that. To me, he doesn't have to be. I can say where Zeke is now. I view him in some of the same ways that I view Dak Prescott. He doesn't need to be the greatest to ever do it, but we can't minimize what he does do well and hold him to this standard because if he's not the same guy he used to be, okay, it happens. He also was. He also had a high value. He was a high. How can I say? He had a lot of tread on this tire coming out of Ohio State. That was one of the knocks on him. They ran him into the ground. So, he had his prime years. And I still think that, I mean, right now, he's more from being a 10,000-yard guy. And
I mean,
very few guys.
I think he'll get 10,000. I guess for me, and don't get me wrong. Okay. Do I think he can still go somewhere else and get 1,000 yards? Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that he'll ever be as impactful on a team's success as he was those first maybe 4 years or so with the Cowboys. Well, that's my argument. I just don't think he can be that impactful Zeke that he was. He can get 1,000.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's not a bet. That's not an unfair assessment. I mean, because the truth is, when he got there as a rookie, it was basically like, hey, especially Tony Romo got hurt. They was like, you're it. So for his first 3 or 4 years, he was Dallas. He was the team. Mm-hmm. So he carried that load, and so it's unfortunate, but he took a lot of volume early on in his career that a lot of running backs can't take. So he may not ever be that top 5 caliber guy ever again, but he's still like I still think Zeke right now is better than fucking Marcus Allen was most of his career, and Marcus Allen's a fucking Hall of Famer.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
We see the consensus theme seems to be, for running backs, 10,000 yards, and
yeah,
he'll get there. He'll get there.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I think you couldn't deny him getting into the Hall of Fame. He'll get there. But long as, like I said, I mean, I just that's my thing, and we can move on from this. I just don't think he'll be that that ceiling that Zeke hit. I don't think he can recover that. I don't think he can get there again.
No, and very few running backs are. But I'll say this: some of your favorite running backs, we'll say this, and we can move on. Some of your favorite running backs will never get to where Zeke is at right now with his career resume. Like, I don't think Christian McCaffrey will be a 10,000-yard back. I don't think Dalvin Cook will be a 10,000-yard back. I don't think they'll make it.
I'll give you Dalvin Cook.
I don't think Christian McCaffrey will stay.
C-Mac may not get there rushing, but I think his receiving numbers added in is what's going to make his resume.
Well, he got one right. Look, right now he got one Pro Bowl to his name. He got one Pro Bowl, and I think one first team All Pro to his name. And I don't think he's ever had a rushing title. So he got a lot of work to make up. But I say all that to say, right now, the comparison, if we're talking about running backs, is Derrick Henry, is Zeke, and everybody else is still playing catch up resume wise. But not to talk too much on Dallas. San Fran, you got to give him credit, man. Kyle Shanahan has really coached his team up I think him and John Lynch are as good of a head coach GM combo as we've seen in a while. They really work off of each other very well. Just the vision that they've had for this team. You've seen them improve in every area year to year since they've been there. This receiving core has gotten better. I tell people Brandon Ayuk is becoming a guy. You know, Deebo Samuel, who will talk his trash.
He's the best pure wide receiver they have.
He's the best pure wide receiver that they have. George Kittle's a future Hall of Famer. We need to talk too much about him. That run, you know, the stable of running backs that they have with Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey, you know, it's very impressive. And the offensive line led by Trent Williams is dominant. Defensively, D'Amico Ryans is on his job. Now,
he's another guy that I think somebody's going to offer him a job this offseason.
Oh, he won't be there. Yeah, he won't be there. He won't be there. He's coached a really good unit. Now, I'll say that, and we can obviously move on and give our quick predictions on NFC and AFC Championship. Might as well just do NFC first. I think Philly's going to be a tall task for them. Because they have weapons that Dallas doesn't have, you know, and it's crazy how matchups work out, because I feel like Philly and Dallas would have been a more competitive game than Philly San Francisco is going to be. I think Philly San Francisco is definitely going to be, yeah, but I think it's just off of familiarity and familiarity and matchups. But the thing about San Fran is, you saw Dallas with Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb moving the ball on them. Like, they were moving the ball downfield. Philly has a much better offensive line than Dallas does. They have a stable of runners that can attack you in different ways. And they have more weapons. That's one thing I can't take away from them. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Quez Watkins, Dallas Goedert. They have the weapons. And then you go on the defensive end. While I may not have a guy like a Micah Parsons, they have such a collection of talent. I think they are a little bit more deep. I want to say they had 3 or 4 guys go over 10 sacks. So Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave had 10 sacks. And then you got Hassan Reddick, who's blitzing from the linebacker spot. So this is a Philly team that is every bit as talented. I'll tell you this: if San Fran plays the same type of game they played against Dallas, they'll lose. They'll probably get blown out. So they can't afford, like, the way Dallas was moving the football on them, the way Dallas was stopping them defensively. I think if San Fran goes against Philly, Philly is so talented that you can see Philly like put it on them, because there's not really how can I say this? This isn't a game where Philly can go into. I mean San Fran can go into and say, "Oh, we're more talented." They can't do that in this matchup.
So, as far as your prediction, I'm taking Philly.
I'm taking Philly. Yeah, I'm not going to take Philly.
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think this Philly having a home field advantage and being able to play this game at home, I think, is going to be a key factor. And I say that because I think that this is finally the game where we see Brock Purdy have. I'm gonna say he has at least 2 turnovers. I think this is finally the game where we see him kind of falter. I think that crowd gets to him, the noise gets to him, the pressure kind of gets to him. I think defensively with Reddick and Smith, coming off Sweat, with Reddick and Sweat coming off those edges.
They got bodies.
They do. They'll get to him. And then they're able to get, with Graham and, with the guys. We'll just say on the D line, consider this, right? Sweat's a double-digit sack guy. Reddick is a double-digit sack guy. Obviously, Graham has shown the ability to bring pressure up the middle. Look at the guys that they can cycle in. They got Robert Quinn, don't forget now, who just last year was an 18.5 sack guy who they got from the Bears.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about Robert Quinn.
I mentioned Jordan Davis. Like, they got such a slew of guys that they can just circle in at that line and they can create pressure. Like, this is an extremely talented team. And then earlier we kind of mentioned their secondary with Big Play Slade, with Gardner Johnson, with Bradbury. You know, I mean, this is a very talented team, and I think that this is finally the game where Brock Purdy actually commits a few turnovers, and Philly kind of takes advantage of them. Like I said, I'm looking forward to watching this game, probably more so than I'm even looking forward to watching Cincinnati and Kansas City, because I think this is going to be some real, true smash mouth football. You're going to see two lines of scrimmages, you know, guys just really going at it and just seeing a real, you know, battle of wills. I don't expect a high scoring game. I expect something fairly similar to what we've seen with Dallas and San Francisco, but I expect Philly to come out on top with their home field advantage and ultimately get to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I'm gonna go Philly. I'm gonna say Philly, and I'm gonna go 2016 Philly in this. I think they take advantage of a couple turnovers, and they run the ball, run the clock out down the stretch, and they hold on and win this thing.
I'm gonna go Philly 24-16.
Okay, I can see that.
24-16. I think San Fran will have some success, but I think that this will be a game. I think Philly matches up very well with San Fran. And as long as they don't let things get out of hand, as long as they don't let things get out of hand in a run game, they have the secondary guys to cover them. And you know, quiet as kept, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He led the league in interceptions, and he missed 5 games. He was what we were talking about with Dak Prescott. He missed 5 games and led the league in interceptions as a DB. So, I mean, it'd be a really good matchup. I think you'll see San Fran come out swinging, but I think this will be the game where ultimately their lack of because Dallas is their most quality win now. Now that Dallas game gives them their best win on the season. I think their lack of throughout the season challenges, and now that they have to play an offense that can challenge them in so many ways. Like, I mean, by God, now you're gonna have to put Tre'Davious Ward on AJ Brown. Good luck. Like, good luck. Yep. You're gonna move Devontae Smith all around the slot.
Physical guy.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. You know, you're not getting fresh off ACL Michael Gallup. You know, it's not sweet over here. You're gonna get a guy who is well conditioned, well in his prime, and can literally break a game wide open if you let him. And that's just him. Devontae Smith, it can tear a game up himself. So it's gonna be a very, very, very dangerous game. But once again, I think we agree. We're both gonna take Philly.
Yeah.
But on to the AFC matchup. I mean, this one's pretty simple. Cincinnati, Kansas City. You know, I'll be honest. I just think Cincinnati matches up so well with Kansas City, especially now that they don't have Tyreek Hill. Like, I think that is such it's such a difference maker in the matchup. But Cincinnati, and as far as, like, you know, your number one weapon essentially now is Travis Kelce, and they have bodies to throw at him.
Yeah.
To slow him down. You know, Jesse Bates, Von Bell is really good at covering tight ends. They have pretty athletic linebackers in Wilson and Gresham. This is just, and it's crazy because this isn't like a superstar. There's none of these guys are superstars.
And that's the thing too. Like,
yeah,
nobody. We always talk about Burrow and Chase, and, you know, this offense. Joe Mixon, who, by the way, ran for 100 yards the other day as well. But because there's not really these huge, big, major known names, nobody talks about this Cincinnati defense, and they're just as good as any defense left in the playoffs. Like, they just flat out go out, they get the job done. Point blank, period. And they've been doing so for the last couple of years now. They flat out get the job done.
No, they do. They handle business, man. They stop the run very well. They get after the pass Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, when they get going, there is dangerous of any bookend pass rush bookend duo in the league, and not just against the pass, against the run as well. Now on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, you got what you want: L'Jarius Sneed covering Jamar Chase. Like what are we talking about?
Yeah,
good luck. And then I was arguing, and I tell people, I was at the bar watching the playoffs last week, and I was telling people, I said, I think people just don't realize how good T. Higgins really is. I think people like T. Higgins is a number one in this league.
On a lot of teams. Yes, he is.
On most teams. As a matter of fact, I had a very interesting argument where I told people that we were watching the Dallas San Fran game. I said T. Higgins is better than Deebo Samuel. They were like, "Oh, what are you talking?" Yes, he's better receiver than
I obviously, once again, and I told you this before, I just consider Deebo a football player, but as a wide receiver, it's not even an argument.
It's T. Higgins, and T. Higgins is clutch.
Yeah,
clutch. Like pressure situations, you need him to make a big catch. He's coming. He got ice water in his veins. Yeah, I'm like, hey, there's a reason why he won the national why he was with Clemson when they won it. Yeah, he's a big target. So, I hate to say it and talk about Kansas City in a way where they're outmatched, because I don't want to say it like that. I just think this was the worst case scenario for them right now. Buffalo would have been a better matchup for them based off of their play style and some of the things that they do defensively. Now, Kansas City wise, I think the biggest thing is we're going to see, can Andy Reid reach in his bag, and what can he do to really get this defense on his heels? How can you spring Travis Kelce open?
Some guys are going to have to step up, because I think a lot of that mobility that we see from Mahomes and the way he can kind of extend plays and give guys that extra second, they're not going to have that this week with that injury. So some guys are really going to have to step up and make some separation. Maybe Isaiah Pacheco can step up and have another big game running the ball. Maybe they can kind of control the clock. Who knows? But
then that's where it becomes difficult, because Cincinnati is not a team that you're going to bully around on the line of scrimmage. That's where it becomes tough. So you're going to need it. You know who I'll tell you who I think is the X factor for them.
For the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Okay.
They traded for a wide receiver from New York.
Kadarius Toney.
And I think that he is going to be such an important part of this game plan, because he is the mismatch nightmare in this game.
Mm-hmm.
That they don't really have a body. Put a Mike Hilton on him, but with his athleticism, I'm interested to see what Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid's going to reach in his bag for this game. So so I think he is going to be very important for the outcome of this football game. But I'm going to take Cincinnati. I'm going to take Cincinnati 28-24.
I'm going to take Cincinnati as well. I think that injury to Patrick Mahomes is really going to loom big. I think this is going to be, I'm not going to lie, I think this is going to be a huge Travis Kelce game. I wouldn't be surprised if he has 12, 13 receptions and 100 and some odd yards or whatnot. But ultimately, I just think, as I alluded to, I think the fact, something Drove says a better team. Mahomes factor doesn't matter, because Burrow is on his tier. So even with healthy Mahomes, and that's a great point. Even if Mahomes was healthy, this was going to be a tall hill to climb for them. You're right. But I just think with the injury to Mahomes, I think a lot of his mobility will be kind of hindered. And like I said, some of those plays, those maybe 3 or 4 plays a game where he's able to kind of use his legs, and even if he doesn't, run and move the chains out of the pocket himself, him being able to extend plays that would normally help them in a normal game for them, I think he'll be a little more hindered in doing that, trying to do that this game. And I think ultimately that's what's going to make the difference. I think they're going to try to give a nice dose of Pacheco, but as you mentioned, I think the Bengals would defend that well.
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that Cincinnati will have some success running the ball themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Mixon goes for another 100-yard game. And I'm gonna go with Cincinnati in this game. I'm gonna say 28-20 Cincinnati.
Okay, yeah, I think we're on the we're all in the right ballpark. It's going to be a competitive game. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think maybe it might be a 20-20 game, 21-20 game, and I think Cincinnati gets that one extra score in the fourth quarter that just kind of puts it away.
I'll be honest. In pressure situations, I trust Joe.
I do too. And as we mentioned earlier, if Joe Burrow goes in there and wins this game, it's gonna be, and there will still be people to argue Patrick Mahomes as being the best quarterback in the league.
It's gonna be
yeah, I can see that. He's probably gonna win the MVP this year, but
look,
a conversation.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if Joe Burrow game,
Bo got Cincy smacking them, huh?
Yeah. If Joe Burrow were not only to win this game, but finally get him some hardware this year.
Oh, I mean, hey, how can you not? How can you not?
Hey, look, based off of the situation that he went to,
how can you not? How can you not?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Two consecutive Super Bowl appearances. This year's Super Bowl run, he beats Josh Allen. He beats Patrick Mahomes, and then ultimately, and we assume Philly's going to get there. He ultimately gets there and beats Hurts, Jalen Hurts, in this in a talented Philadelphia team. I mean, how can you not? How can you not say he's number one?
I don't know.
In 3 years.
In 3 years.
I don't think Patrick Mahomes did that in 3 years. Two Super Bowls and a touchdown. I mean, in a Super Bowl.
Pat won in year 3.
He won in year 3, but this would be
he won an MVP year 2, and he won in year 3.
So for Burrow, this would be 2 Super Bowl appearances in 3 years and a Super Bowl ring. So
if
he doesn't have an MVP, but he got the back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. So
yeah, look, I'm gonna say
that, and both appearances in which he beat Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
I'm gonna go. First of all, if this happens, I'm gonna need to find a time machine, and I'm gonna go back 10 years and talk to Cincinnati fans, and I'm gonna be like, hey, look, help is coming. Just stay patient.
Right?
It's coming.
All them years with Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton, and they get into the playoffs and get knocked out, and little did they know, right? And you talked about it, with the change of culture for them, in back-to-back drafts, they really hit a home run to be able to get Joe Burrow, and then to come back the next year and get his college teammate Jamar Chase. Couldn't ask for much more.
Well, and even then, they drafted T. Higgins in the same draft they drafted Joe Burrow in,
and T. Higgins. Mm-hmm.
So they've really put together, and they've combined it with,
they're still young. The crew,
and they're still young, and then I'll say this, and then obviously we can move on to our last topic. Zach Taylor is proof that if you give a coach not all coaches are bad coaches. Some of them just need a guy. If you give them a guy, they can win games for you.
And that was a point that I meant to mention as well, man. We got to give Zach Taylor his flowers.
Yeah,
like he's done a great job with this team. I know. Early on, people had their questions about him. Some people questioned, whether he took over a bad team.
He took over a bad team. Yeah,
he did. But great drafting and just having confidence in the guy, and he's helped turn him around. Man, got to give him his flowers.
Yeah. So shout out to good old, Cincy. We'll see we'll see what happens this week. We both got Cincinnati winning.
We both got
Philly winning. Mahomes hasn't gone to
a Philly Cincinnati Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens.
Post ACL.
Burrow, yeah, true. I mean, we'll see what happens though. I mean, I don't want to underestimate, because if anybody can win a game like this, it's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Yeah, they could very well exercise some demons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but last but not least, I think you had an update for us. I just wanted to hear, obviously closing out, but I wanted to hear what your thoughts was. We're going to switch over to the NBA really quick. I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on right now on the MVP race. Still early. We're not even into All-Star weekend yet. We still got some time. what if you were to base it right now? Who would you say are your candidates? Because I'm gonna tell you this: if I'm gonna go off of my mind, it's like 10 of them motherfuckers. It's so many people that are worthy of that hype, of MVP hype. But tell me what your thoughts are.
Absolutely right, bro. So as you mentioned, I mean, there's a slew of guys who are actually worthy to be in this conversation. A few of the guys that I'm not gonna jump in on, but I mean, obviously, we can say Joel Embiid is right there in the conversation.
As he always
they've moved up. Philly has moved up to second in the East now. I think they've won 5 in a row. They've moved up to second in the East now. You can throw Ja Morant in the conversation. He has his team at 31-16. They're second although they're on a little slight losing streak right now, but they're second in the West right now. I mean, there's a slew of guys that we can really. Obviously, Giannis and Giannis isn't even one of the 3 guys that I'm going to mention, but obviously Giannis is right there in the conversation. They ended up I think they got Chris Middleton back. I think last night he finally came back and played last night, and they beat the snot out Detroit. But I'm gonna hone in on 3 guys right now.
I'm interested.
You know what? I guess I didn't want to put them in order, but I guess I will. Number 1 right now is Nikola Jokic. Once again, he's averaging 25, 11, and almost he's literally averaging 9.9 assists. So almost
is he leading? Is he leading the league in assists?
No, I think I believe Tyrese Halliburton is. But
okay. I'm sure he's not far behind.
Top 3, he's like second or third, I believe. Halliburton is actually getting 10, is at about 10 assists a game.
Yeah,
he's not far behind though.
Right.
But yeah, 25, 11 rebounds, and 9.9. You can say 10 assists. Obviously, they are number 1 in the Western Conference right now with a 33-14 record. They're 2 games ahead of Memphis right now. And they're 9-1 in their last 10 games as we speak. And I mean, the guy's just playing phenomenal. And I know, and Kenny, hopefully you can remember this. Maybe about, and this was probably, it's 2023. So this had to have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. I made this statement. I said then, mind you, this is 3 or 4 years ago. I said then that Nikola Jokic was the best passing true big man
of all time
in league history. You remember I said that?
You did. You said it.
And this was 3-4 years ago. And I remember when I said that, I would say that, and people would be like, "Come on, man, you forgetting about Sabonis? You forgetting about Arvydas Sabonis, not Domantas.
Right.
I'm talking about the daddy, Arvydas Sabonis.
Yeah.
You forgetting about Vlade Divac? What about Chris Webber? All of those guys could pass their ass off. Tim Duncan, all those guys could pass their ass off. Obviously, this dude right here, Jokic, he's the best passing true big man we've seen in league history. And I said it then because although those guys that I mentioned, although they were, great at passing the ball, it was a lot of movement, a lot of action around him. We see Jokic get the ball off the rim, or they inbound the ball to him, and he literally brings the ball up and facilitates offense as a 7-foot true center. We have never seen that before in the history of this league. And I think the only thing that might hold him back from winning MVP again this year is the fact that he's won it twice in a row. So for him to win it this year, this would be 3 consecutive years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 3 consecutive years. Has that ever been done?
Oh man, now you got me going in my brain. Let me see. Mike won it 2 times in a row. Oh, Larry Bird did it in the 80s.
Yeah,
Larry Bird won it 3 times in a row in the 80s. I think he's the last guy to do it. So
wow.
But yeah, there's Jokic. I guess if I'm gonna have a second on this list, I'm gonna have to go. Shout out to you, Bo. I'm gonna have to go with old Luka Doncic. I mean, if we've been saying for at least the last 2 or 3 years that this kid is gonna win an MVP, and this might be the year this year. He's second in the league in scoring. He's getting about 33.5 a game. He's also flirting with a triple-double. He's averaging about 9 rebounds and 8.5, right under 9 assists, 8.7 assists. And I mean, he has his team currently at 5th in the Western Conference right now. And we know what Luka is, man. The dude's phenomenal. For a guy who, similar to Jokic, they're not athletic at all. Guys from overseas, not athletic at all, but they just simply know how to play the game. As far as a one-on-one player, you have to put him right up there with a Kevin Durant, a Kyrie Irving, as far as guys that it's just so tough to stop them singularly one-on-one, because this guy is just going to find a way to score,
beat you so many different ways.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? He's 6'7", so he can take you on the block. He has a really solid handle to him, and he's good at using angles and using his body, so he's able to get to the rim and finish. Because he's 6'7", he's able to shoot over smaller defenders. He has his move, the step back three, which he's starting to hit at a much more, regular basis. And he's probably, you could argue that he may be the single most important player to one team, and I guess you can kind of mirror that. He's definitely the MIP. He's probably the most important player to his singular team, probably of any player in this league, because
then Joker?
Him, no, I'm gonna say Luka is.
But I'm saying, you don't think that Jokic has a argument for that?
Jokic definitely has that argument, but I like.
Do you think he has a little bit more
minus
support?
Jokic? I like the pieces in Denver minus Jokic, and I do the pieces in Dallas minus Luka Doncic. You know what I'm saying?
I'll take that. I can agree with that.
I mean, even in Denver, and obviously Jokic's having a great season, but I mean, Aaron Gordon is having a pretty solid season.
He is.
Although Jamal Murray isn't quite back to the Jamal Murray.
He has moments. He has moments.
But he's been able to have his moments and whatnot. Vice, if you look at Dallas, Christian Woods had an okay season, but I think that the success, when we do see Christian Wood be successful in Dallas, it's when he's on the floor playing with Luka Doncic, and they finally kind of made that switch of late to kind of get Christian Wood into that starting lineup a little bit. And I think it's kind of paid dividends, because I think we kind of see him at his best when they're on the floor together. So, I got Luka 2 right now.
Who is 3?
And then number 3 may surprise some people, but we got to get a man his flowers. No, it's not LeBron. I'm going to say Jason Tatum.
Okay, all right, okay.
Jason Tatum, right now he's 3rd in the league in scoring. He's getting 31 a game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. And then obviously the Boston Celtics have not just the best record in the Eastern Conference, but they have the best record in the league right now at 35 and 14. They had, if I'm not mistaken, they had won 8 in a row before they finally they've lost their last 2 games in a row. But previous to that, they had won 8 in a row. And I mean, Jason Tatum's just playing his tail off right now. You know what I'm saying? He's really coming into his own. He's really living up to fruition and living up to those expectations that many people have for him, especially after seeing this team in their finals run last year. So, yeah, I think for me right now, I'm going to say Jokic 1, Luka 2, Tatum 3. But as you said, man, I mean, there's literally about 7 or 8 guys you can make an argument for. You can make an argument for Giannis. You can make one for Ja Morant. I didn't even mention Kevin Durant, who's been out now, and Kevin Durant's probably going to miss another two more weeks. But you can make an argument for
Joel Embiid.
Durant. You can make an argument for Joel Embiid. There's a slew of guys that you can throw. I'll give you a dark horse. I'll give you a dark horse. You can make a dark horse argument for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
And I've never been a Donovan Mitchell guy.
Hey, Donovan.
But I be got dog if this dude ain't playing his tail off for the Cleveland.
Is he leading the league? Is he leading in the league in scoring still? He was for a long.
I know. No, Embiid is actually Embiid and Luka are actually Embiid and Luka average the same amount of points. They're both getting about 33.6, but I think Embiid has more actual points, and that's why he's leading. But
Right.
Embiid and Luka, they both average the same amount at about 33.5. And then Tatum's third, Giannis is fourth. Oh, and I got to give this guy a shout out. He's not in the MVP conversation, but he's having a hell of a year. I did not see him being this well. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is playing his ass off in OKC. Yeah. And I'll be goddamn if he's not. As a matter of fact, I voted for the All-Star game, and I voted for him. That's how great of a season he's having.
It's his time. Yeah. No, he's really growing on me, by the way.
Yeah. And then as far as those assists, Halliburton is leading the league in assists, and Jokic is second.
Wow. So LeBron nowhere? I'm just playing.
I mean,
hey, you know what? Hey, I'm gonna say
38-year-old, he's having a hell of a season, but I mean, they're still 6-7 games under 500, something like that.
I'm gonna say
out of the playoff picture right now. So
I'm gonna say this.
No, they're 3 games under 500, but they're still out of the playoff picture. So
if this Joker, I'm gonna tell you somebody, if this Joker could have stayed healthy, if Anthony Davis could have stayed healthy, he would have been firmly in this conversation because he was in his bag.
I'll say this: before AD got hurt, he probably was my MVP before he got hurt.
Yeah,
and I think and I mentioned this, and then and we can cut it there. The Lakers just made this move for Rui Hachimura from the Washington Wizards. And it's a nice move. It's a nice piece. He's a bigger guy who can defend a little bit and who can knock down a three. So he's a nice piece as far as giving them a little more versatility in their lineups, offensively and defensively. But he's nothing that's just going to move the needle. He's nothing that's just going to make
he's not
exponentially better. And I said this in the chat earlier. We really won't know what the Lakers can truly be until Anthony Davis gets back, because as great a season as LeBron is having, and he's clearly chasing Kareem, and he'll probably actually, he's probably gonna. I think I'm gonna say this. I think he might break Kareem's record before we get to the All-Star break. I think he might eclipse it before we get to the break. But neither here nor there. The Lakers are going to go as far as Anthony Davis can take them. Point blank period.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I mean, I guess we're going to talk a little bit more about it next episode. But Adam Rui Hachimura, first of all, that guy is really actually from Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really, really, really from Japan. I live there, so it's just exciting to me. But then, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate. I really was liking him growing slowly but surely with that Washington young core. But I mean, if he can come to LA and play a role, and maybe, and honestly, maybe even get some more opportunities as a shooter and playing with somebody like LeBron, and so like you said,
somebody I was listening to a few shows earlier, and someone made a great point. It's one thing when you're playing for the Washington Wizards, and I think he's shooting almost 42% from 3, and he's shooting. I think as far as catching and shooting, he's shooting almost like 45% as far as catch and shoot threes. Now, granted, it's been a little. He hasn't had a ton of attempts. He hasn't had enough attempts to be toward the top of the league in that in that statistic, because if he did, that 44 or 45% would be at the top of the league. He hasn't had enough attempts to be at the top of the league at that statistic. But somebody said something that was a really great point. It's a big difference between when you're in Washington and the team is crap and you're shooting the heck out the ball in, and when you go to the Lakers and you play with LeBron and you have expectation on you and you're playing nationally televised games every other night. There's a difference, it's amazing how guys
it can also
they can't shoot anymore.
True. But it could also have an adverse effect. He could also rise to the occasion and shine under the bright lights. And I also say this: if you look at the players he was playing with in Washington versus LA, he's going to get looks in LA that he never got in Washington.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think in Washington, obviously they've went. This is just more so a sign that they've definitely bought in, and they're going more towards, Kyle Kuzma, for the future. And Kyle Kuzma is playing really well for them, obviously.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
And this is just a sign because this is the guy that they drafted pretty early. I think he was maybe the 8th or 9th pick for them. They drafted him pretty early in the first round when they drafted him out of Gonzaga. So, I mean, this is just more so a sign that, hey, Kyle Kuzma is going to be our guy at this position moving forward. And they moved him around. So, I mean, like I said, it's a solid move for the Lakers. It gives them a little more versatility offensively and defensively. But, I mean, they're not going to go anywhere without Anthony Davis being healthy. So we really won't be able to tell, where they're going until he gets back. If anything, if you're a Laker fan, if nothing else, you can take solace in knowing that a move like this at least shows that the Lakers don't necessarily intend to stand pat leading up to the trade deadline. So
they're going to try.
That could be good.
You got to give them credit.
They're going to make some calls and they're going to do some things. Yeah.
And I'll say this, that's probably as quality of a move as they could have made based off of what they have, what ammunition they have. They don't want to unload those draft picks, and they don't really have very many players that people are beating down the door for. So that was actually a very...
Even with the improved play of Russell Westbrook, because he seems to have accepted this role off the bench, and his play has ultimately improved since then. But even with the improved play of Russell Westbrook, as far as assets, other than those picks that they have 3-4 years from now, 27 and 29, whatever they are, other than those couple draft picks, Russell Westbrook may be the biggest outside of the big two, obviously, with Davis and LeBron, but I don't think they'll consider letting either one of those guys go. Russell Westbrook may be the biggest trade piece that they have, but I don't see them,
No, they're not going to move off.
They're not going to move off of him because there's no way, if they move off of him, somebody's going to have to either take a huge contract for this year or they're going to get him and then immediately buy him out. And then B, the Lakers, it's going to be really tough for the Lakers to get back a fair value for him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because
it's a contract.
A lot of other teams outside of the Lakers, I don't think a lot of other teams really are interested in him playing for their team.
Not for that price tag.
Exactly.
It's a contract dump off. But yeah. So the NBA is heating up. The NFL is about to be over. We got some. Me and Swan got some stuff to work on as far as our pre-Super Bowl show. So look out for that.
Oh yes, sir. It's gonna be major, man.
It is. It's gonna
1
be
year
major.
Anniversary too.
It is. It's gonna be our 1 freaking year anniversary. We've kept this thing cracking through all the ups and downs, all the hardship. I don't know if people realize this, but most podcasts don't make it. Don't even make it, if I'm not mistaken, 30 episodes, and here we are at 47, knocking on going well beyond 50. So congratulations to my boy, to my dog, one of my brother Swan. So on pretty much on another year, but obviously we got a long way to go.
Hey, you know what? Ironically, and I could be wrong, but ironically, if I'm calculating right, the Super Bowl episode would be episode 50.
It might be.
Because next week will be 48. That break week between the Super Bowl, that week
be 49,
and then that Sunday should be 50, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, that might be right on the nose at 50.
Man,
so yeah,
that's crazy.
So thanks to all who have supported. So I will say this: we didn't plan on going the full 2 hours, but you know how it is. Me and him get on, we have fun.
Right.
I feel like since we got we got a few people watching, I feel like I give you guys a sneak preview. I'm gonna put the trailer out tomorrow, but I don't know, Swan. You want to see the trailer for the Sports Exclusive podcast?
Yeah, if you got them on, folks, look, go on. Give the people what they want, man.
Let's go ahead and get this screen share. Let's see what we're talking about here.
Word.
All right.
Dude.
All right. So I am gonna get this percolating, and this is the Sports Exclusive.
Y'all the first people to see it. Exclusive. Let's get into it.
Exclusive podcast. On Sports Nation, I'm your host, Kenneth Tiberius Clark, and I want to formally welcome you guys to the Sports Exclusive podcast rebrand. We all love the break room breakdown, but the truth is, sometimes in life, change is necessary. Is it freezing up? Is that on me?
Yeah.
To be truly reflective.
Oh, Travis, okay.
and that is to educate people and to make sports more accessible to everyone.
But I felt like I wasn't going to make the team, so I was like, forget it, and I'm going to just go hoop overseas.
Is it just freezing for me, or is that y'all too?
No, it's freezing up too, man. Like I said, I see Travis here though, man. You know,
dang, man, that's unfortunate.
No, that's all right though, man.
Become stars
you guys
based off of just pure ability, or is it opportunity that makes the star?
I want to be a champion, and there's nothing better than just seeing that epic fight of seeing somebody losing ended up coming back.
I think if Josh Allen, he's talented, but I think Josh Allen could have very easily been a plus.
Everyone knew I had a passion for football all my life. So when one of my homeboys showed me, you would do this real good. And I was just like, I watched it on World Star Hip Hop for a while, and I was like, that's crazy. I would actually enjoy that.
Maybe you're down on yourself, or you feel like you'll never get your opportunity. Just be prepared. An unexpected chance at the blink of an eye that can ultimately prepare you to greatness. There are about 8,000 different sports all around the world. I'm not telling you guys that we're going to hit every single one of them, but God damn it, we're going to try. Join me for season 1 of my new journey. And hey, man, let's get this thing percolating.
Oh, yes, sir.
We have some freezing, but you know what? I thought I'd at least at a minimum, I know I was able to give you a little sneak preview for those of you guys that were following. But yeah, that's a Sports Exclusive podcast, man. More to come. I'll put the full trailer out. I'll put the trailer out tomorrow. You guys will see it on all platforms. But I thought I'd give, for people that was following, just give you a quick sneak preview of it. Been working pretty hard on it. A lot of episodes. I still have episodes I gotta download and submit tonight, and I got more stuff lined up, and it's a lot of stuff going on. But that is the Sports Exclusive podcast, available next Wednesday on all platforms.
That's tough, bro. Definitely proud of you. I was saying, I seen you linked up with Travis too, and obviously Travis Reed. We've had on here a few times, man. Former UCLA standout, UCLA basketball standout, played overseas. Good dude, man. Real good dude, man. So
we gotta have, as a matter of fact, come basketball season, we got to get him back on Road to Sports. But we had a great interview. Oh, it was a great interview. As a matter of fact, I think you, especially as a thoroughbred, full body basketball guy, I think you're gonna love it when you actually get a chance to listen to it. He really peeled back the layers of Travis, so it's good.
Oh yeah, man. I'm definitely tuning in, man. So hey, once again, man, an exclusive right here on Rooted in Sports, the Sports Exclusive podcast coming February 1st from old King Tiberius, man. Y'all definitely be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for the trailer tomorrow. Obviously, like and subscribe to the Sports Exclusive podcast as well. Continue to like and subscribe to Rooted in Sports right here on YouTube. Once again, it's just Rooted in Sports. Go ahead, like, subscribe, follow, whatever. You can also follow us on Instagram. That's at Rooted in Sports. It's spelled the same way you see it in our emblem at the top right here. You can follow us personally. I am iSwan_0623. Once again, that's iSwan_0623. And then Kenny, you are Tiberius 519.
Yeah, Tiberius 5.
Tiberius 519, and Tiberius is spelled just as you see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen here. So you can give us each a follow individually on Instagram. You can follow the Rooted in Sports page on Instagram. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the Sports Exclusive podcast. Don't forget that trailer is dropping tomorrow, and then the first episode will be available for you guys on February 1st. We got the Rooted in Sports community that we do every Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. That happens over Twitter Spaces. It's a great space. That's an interactive space where everybody can join. Anybody can join in on Twitter Spaces, and like I said, it goes down in there, and that's all I'm gonna say. Like we got it gets heated in there. Like if you don't know what you're talking about, don't come in there because you will get embarrassed. Okay?
Yeah, you sure is.
Okay, cats will show enough. Go to the stat. You will get embarrassed. Okay, so make sure you know what you're talking about if you're gonna come in there and run with the big boys for sure.
Look, we need to be sponsored by StatMuse.
Oh, for real, bro, because Hey, like I said, every Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, over Twitter Spaces. That's Rooted in Sports Community. If you're gonna jump in there, just make sure you know what you're talking about, because it get real in there. All right. And yeah, I think we covered everything. Once again, be on the lookout for that Super Bowl / 1 year anniversary special, because we definitely gonna bring it to you. And yeah, man, I think that's it, man. You got anything?
That's it, man. It's been a fun day. A lot of good sports coming up this weekend, and just stay tuned. We will see you guys next Tuesday.
Word, man. Once again, giving the people what they want. Until next time, much love. God bless. And peace out.
Peace.